All right. Where did you go to school and what was it like?
So I started kindergarten in Rapid City at Wilson Elementary School. My favorite story that I've heard and kind of remember is when I went to Wilson, there was a boy upstairs that I really thought was pretty amazing. And my birthday was October, so I started school when I was 4. I turned 5 on October 7th of 1972, and I took cupcakes to school, and I made sure that the cute boy upstairs got a cupcake, and that was a teacher. It was a teacher that was upstairs teaching a different grade, but I thought he was the cute boy upstairs who was very nice on the playground, and I wanted to make sure he got a cupcake.
And so, did you stay at Wilson for your?
I didn't stay at Wilson because my mom got remarried and we moved to Piedmont. So I went to Piedmont Elementary and then middle school in Sturgis and high school in Sturgis. But when I came back after I got my teaching degree, I came back to Rapid City area schools. And in 1989, 1990, and 1990, 91, both of those years I subbed in the Rapid City School District. So I was in a lot of buildings. My area of expertise was secondary, so I didn't make it into a lot of elementary buildings as a teacher because that really wasn't my thing. But I was in every single middle school. So at that time, South, North, West, Southwest, and East did not exist. And then Stevens and Central. I did a long-term sub for a semester at Central High School. In the English department, that was the old Central and the part that had no walls. So there was partial walls that could be reconfigured. No, they didn't go all the way up to the ceiling, so tall people could literally see over these partial walls into other classrooms. All the teachers in these shared spaces were lecturing and giving tests and showing movies and giving speeches. And I'm not exactly sure who thought that was a great school plan, but I did learn classroom management and how to capture kids' attention when there was a variety of other classroom activities going on surrounding you. So I always thought subbing was a really great thing for me because it gave me very strong classroom management skills. And then when I was a teacher, I always told my kids to not treat subs badly because the rest of their day, everybody would be trying to get something over on them, but I didn't want my students to be the troublemakers. So that was kind of interesting. And then in 1991, I got my first full-time teaching job in Rapid City, and that was at Stevens High School. 1991 in the fall, that was the year ninth graders started high school. So before that, we'd had the junior high program. We were moving to the middle school program. They brought ninth graders up to Stevens, which meant they needed more ninth grade teachers. Some teachers really wanted to stay middle school, so sixth graders were moving up to middle school. So some sixth grade teachers moved up, some eighth grade teachers moved up, but some wanted to stay in middle school and stayed put. So that opened up a few jobs. So I got one of those up at Stevens High School, and it was my first full-time position. Then I was lucky enough to be at Stevens through the building of the remodeling and the building of the ninth grade wing, through a lot of different events and opportunities at Stevens. Interestingly, my very first fall full-time teaching at Stevens was the hostage situation at Stevens in September of 1991. And I always felt that if you could begin teaching and endure a situation like that, you were meant to stay in the field. So I always took that as kind of an opportunity to really recognize that I was where I needed to be. One of the great things about that whole experience was we didn't have a plan, and it was very obvious that day that we did not have a plan. And after that, every building in this district had a plan, obviously more so at the middle and high school, but as time has gone on, that has expanded to include safety measures at the elementary as well.
What is your favorite school memory, either from when you were in school or when you were a teacher, or as a parent also?
So both of my girls attended Rapid City area schools. They went to Pinedale West Middle School. One went to Stevens for a couple of years, and then they both went to Central and graduated from Central. So I feel like I've really been a part of the Rapid City area schools as a student, as a teacher, as an administrator, and as a parent. But my favorite memory of, there's a lot of good things that happened at Stevens High School, but probably one of my favorite memories is coming in and directing Seussical the musical. The drama teacher had left suddenly at Stevens, and I was in the middle of getting my master's and had zero time to do anything extra, but it was step up and direct the musical, or they would have to cancel it and the kids wouldn't get that experience. So I stepped up, and that cast and crew and a bunch of kids were just really phenomenal. Some have stayed in touch over time, and that's been great, but a wonderful experience. The way the whole staff kind of came together for that and supported the kids as they had lost their drama teacher, and we're dealing with my crazy schedule because I was also taking classes, but it turned out really well. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. I have lots of good memories with senior classes and cheerleaders and being at various state events, attended a lot of them, graduations, but that one stands out.
Your mom went to the Rapid City High School when it was serving as a high school. So growing up, what memories did you hear her talk about, and what kind of place does it hold in your heart?
So one of the memories, when my mom grew up in the Valley, and then they moved into town off of West Chicago when she was in middle school. And one of the things I remember her telling me is they could afford to eat lunch at school one time a week. And she was very picky about the time of the meal every week that she got to eat, and had to really be on top of that. So I remember thinking that was kind of funny, because most kids now, or then, I don't know that I ever really was excited about eating school food, but I guess if you only get to do it one day a week, that was pretty special to her. And then, of course, West was built by that time, so she had walked over from West Chicago over to West, but then had to go downtown to the old Rapid City High School, which is now the Rapid City Alternative Academy, and went to high school there. And she can still talk about the stairs and the lockers in that building. She is an usher for the Performing Arts Council and Black Hills Community Theater. So she gets in there every once in a while. She's donated her yearbooks. They're on display there. My office was there for a few years. So it's always good to hear the old stories. I know that she and many people in the community are very thankful that building was saved.
If you had to choose a favorite part of that building from your time working there, what do you think stands out? I've heard a lot of people say the gym, others it's the theater. I really like the old stairway from the 1923 section.
Oh, I think it's my favorite part is probably the stairways, but they're confusing because sometimes the stairs are on the outside and there's an opening in the middle, and sometimes they're in the middle. and so it's kind of fun for kids. You either have to pick a side, right or left, to go up or down, or the whole big stairways in the middle. So it's kind of an interesting feature of how that was built. Also, all the stairs on the sides to get kids, students, and staff where they needed to be on all the different floors. It's quite a journey from first floor to the fourth floor. And to do that in 5 minutes with a stop in the locker and not all the bathrooms that we have now would have been an interesting time to be in school. Of course, then they didn't carry backpacks like they do now, and You went to your locker between every period. It's just kind of a different way things were, and to think about that is interesting always.
Is there anything else you can tell us about either being a parent of Rapid City students or your experience as a leader in the district about education today?
I think as you travel around the Rapid City School District, we have 23 schools currently being used in an elementary, middle, or high school capacity. And you don't really think about how big the district is until you try to drive the district. And earlier this summer, I was giving a tour to an assistant superintendent candidate who actually turned out to be Dr. Strasser, who is our current assistant superintendent. But we started off and I drove him to all of the buildings, and it took 4.5 hours to just drive by all of the buildings when you start heading out to Blackhawk and then come in and hit South Canyon and Pinedale and Stevens and Canyon Lake and Meadowbrook and Southwest and Corral Drive, and then you go over Catron and hit the South Side schools and then out into the valley, and then you come back in and you hit the North Side schools and then Central and then Rapid City High School. We are a larger district than one thinks. When we think, I can get across town in 15 minutes. That's a lovely thing about living in this size community. However, if you're talking about getting from Blackhawk Elementary to the Valley, it's a little bit longer, or from Blackhawk to Southwest Rapid. We cover a lot of land, a lot of square mileage, and it's really an honor to lead a district that large and diverse. Obviously, when you're in all of the buildings, you see the discrepancy of what students have in front of them, the atmosphere that they're educated in, from our newest elementary buildings to our oldest elementary buildings, the size of the classroom, what you can fit in there, whether it has air conditioning, what the ventilation system is like, what the library is like, what the gym is like. When you look at a gym like Pinedale, literally the walls are right where the out-of-bound lines are. But you look at a General Beetle or something like that, and you have room for bleachers in those rooms in that space. And I really just wish that every student in Rapid City Area School had the opportunity to have the same equitable educational experience. And that's what I think about at night sometimes when I think about where our kids go to school and what building they're walking into versus what another child is walking into. And I think we should always, as a community, try to live up to and maintain equitable educational standards for our kids.
That's really interesting because I think growing up in Rapid City, it's been very, very stable for my lifetime. You know, the schools that existed now have always been K-5, 6-8. You know, our high schools have been 9-12, but looking back to just before you started school, we see a massive consolidation effort, and I think that our community kind of people my age anyway, around 40, have really a misunderstanding about how those independent school districts came together from rural schools into a consolidated district that we have now, and the stability and consistency that we do provide. So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. When I mentioned my mom grew up in the Valley, she literally went to a one-room schoolhouse. Education looked different. Her older siblings, 2 of her sisters didn't graduate from high school. So it's just bringing everything into town and uniting that culture under one school district and one form of getting education to kids has really been a benefit. And we don't want to lose the old stories about what it was like, because we don't want to go back, right? We want to continue to offer a very solid public education experience for our students.
Well, and that makes me also think about the changes through ADA and the experience of all kids getting to come into our buildings and have that be accessible that, a one-room schoolhouse may not have been able to provide 50 to 70 years ago.
Well, just look at Pinedale and the levels and the ramps and the attempt to become ADA compliant, and it's a pretty level school. But then you look at Wilson Elementary, and there are 10 different levels, and it is very unfair for a child with disability needs. There's parts of that building that we have to be really concerned about having them in case there's a need to evacuate. So teachers literally have to move and classrooms have to move to adjust to one student's needs. And that is not something we consider when we build a building today. So when we build a Valley View, there's elevators. When we build a General Beetle, there's elevators. It is the whole building is compliant. So is Corral Drive and Southwest and East, whereas we've had to make adjustments in the older buildings, the Old South, the Old North, the Old West. Parts of that have had to be adapted. And it'd be nice if we were all on the same page and completely compliant across the district in ways that were equal for every student.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate your time. I hope it's okay I called you Nicole instead of Mrs. Swigart.
Always.
Hopefully we will get more stories, and if you have a story you'd like to tell, then we will try to schedule some time and get a variety of community stakeholder stories to share for this special 100-year centennial of the original east side of Rapid City High School, that building that opened up as a junior high, then flexed to a high school, back to a junior high, a middle school, a high school, and an academic academy now.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me.